A resounding boom rang out as Xiao Jinhan's white glacial wave clashed against the opposing wave of immortal treasures, resulting in a clash of epic proportions. The entire valley rumbled and swayed, while countless crisscrossing rifts appeared over the layer of ice that covered the ground. Thankfully, the entire valley had already been frozen solid by the ice conjured up by Xiao Jinhan's spirit domain, which was far more resilient than normal ice. Otherwise, this entire area would have already been completely pulverized in the wake of such a formidable clash. Even so, the valley was still beginning to collapse, and it wasn't going to be able to hold itself together for much longer. The glacial wave shuddered violently before exploding and reverting back into a vast expanse of snowflakes that drifted away in all directions. The wave of immortal treasures was also vanquished, and every single immortal treasure within it was also encased in a thick layer of ice that significantly hampered their spiritual nature. Right at this moment, a white figure shot out of the swirling ice and snow, and it was none other than the white domain spirit. The domain spirit was pouncing at the nearest golden immortal, which was a portly elderly man from the Dawnfall sect, and white light flashed over its fingertips, upon which all of its fingernails elongated to several feet in length, resembling a set of sharp sword as they pierced toward the elderly man's head. The elderly man's expression instantly changed slightly upon seeing this, and he shot back in retreat while opening his mouth to release a red flying dagger, which swelled to several times its original size in the blink of an eye. There was an extremely lifelike phoenix design engraved onto the dagger, and it was giving off radiant white light. The elderly man made a hand seal, and the phoenix suddenly spread its wings as if it had sprung to life, and its entire body was radiating dazzling red light. Bursts of crimson flames emerged over the flying dagger to form a fiery phoenix projection, which was giving off formidable fire law power fluctuations as it swept toward the white domain spirit. The domain spirit made no effort to take evasive measures, and radiant white light erupted out of its right hand as it reached straight into the phoenix projection. The fiery phoenix instantly let loose an anguished wail as it faded away into nothingness, while the flying dagger was caught in the grasp of the domain spirit. It was instantly trapped in a thick layer of white ice, rendering it completely immobilized. The rotund elderly man was astonished to see this. The red flying dagger didn't appear to be all that remarkable, but it was actually one of his most powerful treasures. It had been refined using a set of true spirit phoenix remains that he had found by chance, and it was capable of unleashing extremely formidable phoenix true flames, but it was made to look like a toy in the face of the domain spirit. The white domain spirit then swept its left hand through the air like lightning, releasing 5 streaks of white glacial light that appeared in front of the rotund elderly man in the blink of an eye. The elderly man was greatly alarmed by this, and he hurriedly rubbed his hands together before thrusting his palms into his own body. Several protective light barriers of different colors instantly appeared around him, and he shot back in retreat as quickly as he could. However, the protective light barriers weren't able to pose any resistance against the 5 streaks of glacial light, and they were torn apart with ease. A look of alarm and horror instantly appeared in the elderly man's face upon seeing this. Right at this moment, a burst of gray light shot forth from the side, then transformed into a giant gray hand that managed to keep 4 of the streaks of glacial light at bay. But one of them was able to slip through the cracks and glide past the elderly man's left arm. The arm was instantly amputated at the shoulder before plummeting out of the sky as a block of ice. No blood flowed out of the wound. Instead, it was covered in a layer of white ice crystals that began to rapidly spread toward other parts of his body. The elderly man immediately summoned an azure talisman with his remaining hand before adhering to the wound. The talisman instantly exploded to form a ball of green light that enveloped the wound, and the spread of the ice crystals was immediately slowed. At the same time, the elderly man continued to shoot back in retreat until he was a relatively safe distance away from the white domain spirit. The domain spirit immediately set off in pursuit, but right at this moment, the gray hand swelled to around twice its original size amid a flash of black light, then grabbed onto the domain spirit like lightning. At the same time, a giant white seal, an azure jade ring, and a gray jade scepter shot forth from afar. These were the immortal treasures of the other three Dawnfall sect golden immortals, and they struck the domain spirit with tremendous force, causing it to explode into a vast expanse of white light. Are you all right, Elder Yan? Xianxia asked as he appeared beside the rotund elderly man before pointing a finger at him, and a crimson talisman shot out of his fingertip, giving off faint fire law power fluctuations as it transformed into a ball of red light that vanished into the elderly man's body. A layer of pulsing red light instantly appeared over the wound on his shoulder to ward off the invasive ice crystals. I'm fine. I didn't expect this domain spirit to be so powerful. Thank you for saving me, Sect Master, the rotund elderly man replied. A domain spirit can draw upon all of the law power within a spirit domain, so it's no less formidable than Xiaojinhan himself. Make sure to be on your guard, everyone. I may not be able to protect all of you from here onward, Xianxia said in a grim voice. Grim looks appeared on the faces of all of the Dawnfall sect cultivators upon hearing this, but they quickly realized that they had nothing to fear as the domain spirit had already been slain just now. Given how powerful the domain spirit was, surely it wouldn't be easy to conjure one up, so they didn't have to worry about it for the foreseeable future. However, right at this moment, the vast expanse of white spiritual light that the domain spirit had disintegrated into suddenly began to converge toward a single spot, and another domain spirit emerged amid a flash of white light, much to the shock and dismay of all of the golden immortals present. With a sweep of the domain spirit's sleeve, all of the snowflakes within the spirit domain began to churn and surge once again, forming another enormous glacial wave that was even larger than the one before. Everyone immediately braced themselves to oppose the glacial wave, only for Feng Tiandu to appear in front of them in a flash. A domain spirit isn't that easy to destroy. Go and destroy those 5 stone pillars. In the meantime, I'll hold off the domain spirit. Radiant black light erupted out of Feng Tiandu's body as he spoke, and countless bursts of black qi instantly surged out of the black spirit domain around him. At the same time, he began chanting an incantation while releasing a string of incantation seals, and a series of black chains emerged within the black qi. All of the black qi instantly converged toward a single spot to form a giant black mountain which stood directly in the path of the glacial wave. A resounding boom rang out, and the black mountain shuddered violently, as did the chains around it, many of which were snapped, but the glacial wave was ultimately kept at bay. Feng Tiandu peered into the glacial wave, and black light flashed within his eyes as he thrust a palm into the black mountain. Black light flashed over the mountain as well, and a series of chains shot out of the mountain before piercing into the glacial wave like lightning to tie up the white domain spirit. Everyone's expressions eased slightly upon seeing this, and they immediately swooped down toward the stone pillars below. A cold harumph rang out from within the white light barrier at the center of the stone pillars, and countless bursts of white light converged from all directions, forming a huge white net that swooped toward everyone. A burst of incredibly formidable ice law powers instantly surged out of the net, and everyone knew that they would be in immense trouble if they were to be ensnared by the net. Hence, they immediately stopped cold in their tracks, then parted down the middle to try and skirt around the net. However, the white net abruptly expanded outward, instantly swelling to several times its original size to stop everyone again. Qitian opened his mouth to release a burst of gray light, interspersed throughout which were 4 or 5 gray law threads, all of which vanished into the gray jade scepter. The scepter instantly began to glow radiantly and swelled to several dozen times its original size. At the same time, gray light flashed over its tip, and a gray serpentine head with a large fleshy growth on its head emerged. The serpentine head opened its mouth to release a cloud of dense gray mist, which transformed into 4 or 5 huge gray pythons. The serpent's body was covered in scales that were riddled with countless gray patterns, giving it quite a fearsome appearance, and it released a vast expanse of corrosive law powers that struck the white net. The corrosive law powers instantly began eating away at the net rapidly, and before long, several large holes had appeared on it. The other golden immortals were ecstatic to see this, and they flew through those holes in the net to continue on toward the stone pillars. Xianxia made a hand seal, and the huge gray pythons abruptly fused as one into a giant python that was over 1,000 feet in length, then swooped down to strike the white light barrier around the stone pillars with tremendous force. A resounding boom rang out as the white light barrier rippled slightly, then immediately returned to normal. Xianxiao faltered slightly upon seeing this. They had previously attacked this white light barrier, but it hadn't been that resilient at the time. Immediately thereafter, everyone else's attacks also arrived. 3 golden flying swords shot out of the bodies of Ouyang Kuishan's trio, and they instantly transformed into 3 giant golden swords that were radiating dazzling golden light. All of the patterns on the flying swords began to glow radiantly, and there were countless golden runes dancing within the golden light. Each of the 3 Blaze Dragon Dao Lords expelled a mouthful of blood essence, then made a hand seal, and the golden light radiating from the 3 giant swords brightened even further as they fused as one to form a single golden sword that was 3,000 to 4,000 feet in length. Under the collective efforts of the 3 Dao Lords, the enormous golden sword reared up before crashing down toward the white light barrier. Meanwhile, the elderly woman raised a hand, and the 2 golden canes shot forth through the air once again, while transforming into a pair of golden dragons that were each several hundred feet in length. At the same time, 2 balls of red light containing a pair of red bracelets flew out of her sleeve, and they fitted themselves around the necks of the 2 golden dragons in a flash. Crimson flames were instantly ignited over the bodies of the golden dragons, transforming them into a pair of fiery dragons, Trey, and their auras also swelled drastically as they pounced at the white light barrier. Immediately thereafter, the clear cry of a crane rang out across the entire valley. A ball of scorching descended from the heavens, containing a fiery crimson bird that was several hundred feet in size. There was a fiery crown on its head, giving it a sense of regal majesty, and an appearance similar to that of the legendary vermilion bird. The fiery bird lashed out with its enormous talons, unleashing streaks of crimson sword chi that also hurtled directly toward the white light barrier. At the same time, a giant blue wheel that was over 1,000 feet in size appeared beside the fiery bird in a flash before immediately beginning to revolve rapidly. Bursts of radiant blue light appeared over the giant wheel, then transformed into numerous blue ice spikes that filled the entire surrounding area in a radius of several hundred feet. All of the ice spikes had hints of law powers swirling around them, and in the next instant, all of them were also sent flying toward the white light barrier as if they had been fired out of crossbows. The crimson fiery bird and the giant blue wheel were being controlled by none other than Taoist Huyan and Yunni, respectively.